Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile, and today we're going to take a look at the Burson Audio Playmate 2. I want to thank Burson Audio for sending over the Playmate 2 for a review. Do greatly appreciate it. Burson Audio, you rock. Also, I want to thank Burson Audio for giving me as much time as I wanted with the Playmate 2. So I took about a month and just really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I got to know it a little bit. So here are some thoughts about the Burson Audio Playmate 2. Alright, so it looks like this. I do have it plugged in so you can see the display on the front. And it's not a very big display, but it gives you some valid information. Tells you what your volume is. As you can see here, it just kind of moves around as you... And then also it'll mention if it's a USB or Toslink input. Also it'll say if it's headphone output or if it's the pre-out. And it'll tell you whether it's PCM or DSD, that type of thing, and then your file bitrate. So it's a decent enough size of a screen to give you enough information. And then if you press this little button right here, it'll take you to the menu and you can change your input and your outputs. You can also change your gain switch, and you just do that by selecting the volume and then turning it accordingly, and it'll flip from high to low. And then you just click it again to select your thing, your selection. Then also you can change the filters. You can also change whether or not you want DSD upsampling or not, PCM, and if you want some emphasis added in, those type of things. There's a few filters in there. I didn't really mess around with those too much. I did mess around with the filters a little bit. Didn't really notice a huge difference. Mostly it is affecting treble roll-off. I like the reserve filter. That was the best one for me that had the overall presentation that I enjoyed. Brick wall sounded compressed. And then all the other ones either had too much treble or not enough treble. And I just preferred the reserve filter. So that is what all sound impressions will be based off of, is the reserve filter. Overall, I really enjoy the build of the Playmate 2, and it's small enough but yet big enough for the desktop, has enough heft to it, weighs about 3 kilograms, and it's solidly built. If you're familiar with any other Burson products, it's built just like that. Let's turn it off, and then we'll show you the ins and outs of it and talk about the sound. Oh, one other quick thing. If you have music playing and you just hit the button, you'll see that it starts flashing and you have muted your music. All right, so let's turn it off and unplug it here. So on the front, you have your menu selector. You have your volume, which is very nice. It's a knurled feel, and it stepped. It just makes that lovely noise. I just absolutely love the volume knob. There's your screen. Then you have 3.5 input, and that does have mic input. So if you are a gamer or an online communicator of some sort, you would be able to use a mic input. I did not test that function, as I do not have really any needs for that. And then also you have a quarter output, and then there's your power button. On the backside, it is very simple. USB-C input, Toslink input, RCA output, and there's your power. You do get a nice big power brick, and works great. I mean, I had no problems with any sort of sound, hissing, popping, anything of the sort. So everything works very well. For being a Class A amplifier, this thing actually does not get very hot. The cool case does its job, and this thing gets slightly warm, but you never are to the point where you can fry an egg on it like you can on some Class A amplifiers. Overall, I really enjoyed the build, and just the feel of it and the look of it is just gorgeous and simple, but well designed, elegant, but yet simple. And I just love the build. All right, a few specs. It does PCM and DXD up to 768 kilohertz at 32-bit. It'll do native DSD 64, 128, 256, and 512. It also does DSD over PCM, and it does DOP 64, DOP 128, and DOP 256. So you have pretty much everything covered. The only thing it doesn't do is MQA. The Input impedance on it is 38 kilo ohms, and the frequency response is 0 to 35 kilohertz. And then the THD is 0.002%, so it's really low. Output impedance is 2 ohms, and that's for the headphone, so it's a little bit high. And so this does not play very well with IEMs whatsoever. And I found that with the volume set on number 1, most IEMs were loud. So no go for most IEMs. The output impedance for the pre-out is 15 ohms. Works very well with my powered speakers behind me, which you can see right there. The Monoprice MM5Rs worked extremely well. And then inputs, as I said, USB and Toslink. And then the pre-out is only headphone jack or the RCA outs. Some power. Now this thing has power. Now this is Class A, and it is very good Class A. We'll put it that way. At 16 ohms, it's 3.5 watts. Now bear in mind, it also has 2 ohms of output impedance. So you're getting a lot of power. And these will power basically anything, especially at 16 ohms. 32 ohms are 2.5 watts. And then at 100 ohms, they're 600 milliwatts. And at 150 ohms, it's 400 milliwatts. And at 300 ohms, it's 150 milliwatts. This will power pretty much everything. The only headphones that I really had somewhat of an issue with here in the household was the T50RP Mark IIIs and the Barodynamic DT880 600 ohms. Now, I drove those, but I just felt that they were lacking just a little bit. And so this will power pretty much everything that is out there. If you have something that's really demanding, it may or may not push it to its limit, but it's definitely able and capable to drive the majority of headphones. It has channel separation of 128 dB. THD is 0.0018%. It works with Windows and Mac, iOS, and Android. So you can connect this with pretty much anything, and it's going to play the music. Now, bear in mind, it's only USB-C and Toslink. So you are a little limited on inputs, and you're a little limited on outputs. And at the price tag of $544, that is something to consider. But how does it sound? Sometimes when you're limited on inputs and outputs, if it sounds good, I can overlook it. And I must say, Burson Audio has done a fantastic job with the Playmate 2. Sounds fantastic. If you're familiar with any of the other Burson products, you're getting basically the same thing with the Playmate 2. It does have a couple differences. The Conductor 3X Performance that I reviewed is very similar in sound, but the Playmate 2 does a few things differently. Overall, the presentation is nice and warm, has a lushness to it, but has really good details and clarity, good extension on both ends. So it's a very smooth sound, but yet very detailed, and you can do critical listening to it without getting fatigued. It's not going to force feed all the details in, and it's not a super analytical, bright sound. It is a very clean and clear sound that is very smooth and rounded edges and just lush and non-fatiguing. The difference between the Conductor 3XP that I reviewed and the Playmate 2 seems like that the Playmate 2 has a slight boost in the mids and in the treble. So they're a little bit more accentuated, and just a little bit. I don't recall that being the case with the Conductor. And so sometimes when you have headphones that already are a little bit mid-forward, they will come across in a little bit more of aggressive way. Something like Sennheiser HD600 will kind of sound that way, just a little bit more, but not fatiguing, not really aggressively too much, but it is a little bit forward. If you take a Meze Empyrean that I have back here, the Meze Empyrean, it kind of does something that I don't care for too much with the Meze Empyrean, and that is it brings the mids a little too prominent and the treble a little too prominent, and it pushes them a little forward, and it kind of messes with the overall presentation of the Empyrean being very enveloping, with the singer kind of being surrounded by the music and everything around it, and the singer being in the middle. And with the Playmate 2, it kind of makes the Empyrean put the singer up front and forward of everything. So the Burson is a little bit picky when it comes to what headphone it plays on, but overall I find it to be a very pleasing sound signature. If you do have headphones or speakers that are a little bit warm and have a little bit more robust bottom end on it, it will muddle things up a little bit. It can. For example, the 99 Classics are that way. It does a nice job with the upper end of the 99 Classic, but at times the bottom end was just a little too much. And so it's just kind of an interesting pairing. I really did enjoy it with the Hi-Fi-Man Ananda, the Hi-Fi-Man Sundara, the Mr. Speakers Ether C, and also the AKG K275s, and the Meze 99 Classic. Even though it did have a little bit more rumbly in the bottom end, I did enjoy them a lot. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the Empyrean on the Burson, but it's not my preferred sound with that headphone. As far as how it compares to others, I do have two other DAC amps in-house, and that is the Mytek Liberty and also the Socris DAC 1421. And the Playmate 2 kind of fits in between both of those as far as overall sound signature. Warm, a little bit airy, detailed. It's not quite as warm as the Socris, and it's not quite as airy and as crisp as the Mytek. And I find that the Mytek is more technical than the Playmate 2. It has better details and better resolution, and that the Playmate is similar to the Socris DAC 1421 as far as resolution and as far as detail retrieval. So it kind of is in between the two. So if you're looking at either one of those and you want a balance of those two, here you go, Burson Playmate 2. I really do enjoy the Burson Playmate 2. I highly recommend it. I have enjoyed all the time that I've had with it. And I kind of wish I didn't have to send it to the next reviewer. But Burson Audio, I appreciate your patience with me as I put this review together and all the time that you allowed me to have with it. I'm very thankful for everything that you have done and how you reached out to the channel and invited me to review the Playmate 2. So I do greatly appreciate it. Burson Audio, you're amazing. This has been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching. And I'll catch you next time. Speaking of next time, somewhere on the screen, subscription link, notification bells, all kinds of good stuff. Check out the links down below. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And also check out the links down below for where you can contact Burson Audio and purchase yourself a Playmate 2. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile, and I'll catch you next time.